All right. Good morning, Year 10s. Welcome to episode 3 of Math in the Bubble with Mr. Daly, your host. Today we are going to be, eventually converting units of area. But for a start, we're just going to do some problems that are related to perimeter in an area of 5 shapes that we've learned over the last 2 episodes. So, without further ado, I'll get started. If you want to do these by yourself, just pause the video here if you're watching on the video, or take a screenshot if you are on the stream. Otherwise, I'm going to get started. I've actually copied these questions over and deal with them individually. So, rectangles, nice and easy. The one thing that I've done to make this problem a little bit harder is to change the units. So we've got centimeters and we've got meters. So I'm going to change the centimeters into meters, because meters is just the generic measurement unit. So I tend to like going from other units into meters. So let's do that. That will be 1.6 meters, because 100 centimeters equals 1 meter. So if we are going into meters, we would be dividing by 100. 160 divided by 100 gets you 1.6. Okay, now rectangles have widths that are the same. So if it's 1.6 on that side, it'll be 1.6 on the other side. And if it's 3.2 meters on the bottom, it'll be 3.2 meters on the top. So that allows us to get our perimeter. It's going to be 2 lots of 1.6, 2 times 1.6, and 2 lots of 3.2. 2 times 3.2 gives us 3.2 plus 6.4, gives us 9.6 meters altogether. And if you did that in centimeters, that would be 960 centimeters. Because if we wanted to go from 1 to 100, we would multiply by 100. All right. Area of a rectangle. That is going to be our base times height. Base times height. So 1.6 meters times 3.2 meters. I'm not going to do this one on my head. I'll use the calculator. 1.6 times 3.2 equals, use the STD button, 5.12. 5.12 meters squared. And I'll go back and do the conversion to centimeters later. It's not as simple as just multiplying by 100 to get the amount of centimeters squared there are. So we'll just do our measurements in meters, or just whatever they're dealing with. Okay, next one. We have a parallelogram, units in feet. So we have got 10 and 5 on this side, which means that this side will also be 5, and this bottom length will be 10. So watch out for that 3. It's not going to be 13 on the bottom. That's just to show you that there's a triangle going on there, a 3, 4, 5 triangle. All right. So perimeter of our parallelogram is 5 and 5. 2 times 5 plus 2 times 10. It's going to be 10 plus 20, 30 feet all the way around the parallelogram. Okay, area of a parallelogram. It doesn't use that 5, it uses the 4 because we want the vertical height of the parallelogram, not the length of the side. And if you remember, that's because if we think of a rectangle, then if we cut off this little green triangle, we could paste it in here and we'd have that red rectangle area. So that's why we use the 4 and not the 5. 4 feet times 10 feet equals 40 feet squared. Well, they actually use a different thing in America. They say square feet, which looks like that sometimes. But those two are the same way of writing the same thing, basically. Okay, moving on to number 3. We have a triangle. I forgot to make it a right angle triangle, but that's that. For our perimeter, we need to know this side, C. So we've got a Pythagoras problem here. We've got A squared plus B squared equals C squared. Now, some of you might know that this is actually a perfect triangle because we've got 5 and 12. But I'll show you guys who may not know that how to do it regularly. So A is 5, so 5 squared plus B squared, 12 squared equals C squared. So we can work out what C is by taking the square root of all of that. So 5 squared plus 12 squared. And if you plug all of that straight into your calculator, you will get C equals 13 kilometers. Yeah. All right. So to get the perimeter of the shape, we have got 5, 12, and now we've got 13. So 5 plus 12 plus 13 equals, that's 25, that's 30 kilometers. Okay, area of a triangle is half base times height. So half times 5. Oh, actually, that's not the base, is it? Move that over there. 12 times 5. Of course, it doesn't actually matter which order you do base times height, but I just wanted everything to sort of match up with how it is in the question. And I should put kilometers as well so that we get the right units. See how we've got kilometers times kilometers, so we're going to get our final unit being kilometers squared. Alright, anyway, half of 12 is 6. 6 times 5 is 30. 30 kilometers squared. Interesting. I think it's not buffering for some too well, but the video recording should be okay. And that might be an option for some of you if forever the stream is just not playing right. And I haven't had any issues with any of the recordings I've had, so you might just have to tap out or just wait till I reveal the exercise. Alright, circles. So the perimeter of a circle is the circumference, and the formula for that is 2 times pi times radius. So that is going to be 2 times our pi button times 2.7 meters. Okay, so let's put that into our calculator. 2 times pi times 2.7. Notice how I actually didn't put a times symbol between the 2 and the pi, but that will still work out, I believe. 16.97, I think it was. 96. No rounding up. And we're talking about a distance. The circumference is a distance, so we just have linear units, no squares. Alright, area of our circle is pi times radius squared. Another way you could think of it is pi times radius times radius. Radius squared is radius times radius. And sometimes that's a better way to think about it, because then it makes sense why you've got square meters out of that formula. So pi times 2.7 times 2.7, or which is also equal to pi times 2.7 squared. So either working is fine. You're going to get the same answer. Let's put it in our calculator. Shift. Let's kill that. Shift pi. Oop, it's not shift pi times 2.7 times 2.7 equals 22.90. 22.90 meters squared. The area for question 3 was 30 kilometers squared. Yeah, it actually is the same as that is kind of just a fluke. That very rarely happens. It seems like a lot of you are having issues today. Okay, last question on the sector. So with the sector, the perimeter, we have got a radius on this side, so that's a radius, and then we've got a radius on the other side, so this is also 2 radiuses, and then we've got this arc, which we can get from the radius formula. So to get an arc, you've just got, it's the same as your circle formula for circumference, 2 pi r, but then there's this extra little thing which makes it a proportion out of a circle. So this 45 degrees, we've put it in under the top. So we've got 45 degrees out of 360 degrees in a circle. So like this means 45 out of 360. So if you put that in your calculator, this is probably going to get you 1/8. So if we wanted to find the length of that arc, we would go 2 times pi times 100 for radius, and then multiply by 1/8. And if you think about 90 degrees is a quarter of a circle, so 45 is 1/8. Eighth of a circle. Right. So if I put that into the calculator, 2 times shift pi times 100 times 1 1/8. 25 pi, or 78.5. So the length is 78.5. Our perimeter is going to be 2 radiuses, because we've got those two sides of the pizza, 2 radius, and the length, plus the length. So we're going to get 200 plus 78.5 gets us 278.5 meters. If your pi button isn't working, Indy, just use 3.14. Just multiply by 3.14, and that'll get you close enough. All right, now we want to do the area of the sector. So the area of the sector is pretty much the area of a circle, but you're doing the same proportion thing again. So the area of a circle is this part of the formula, and then our multiplier is going to be whatever angle we have divided by 360. So this is just our circle, and this is the proportion of the circle. So if we put in our radius for this circle, it is 100 meters squared. And then we're going to multiply that by 1/8 again, because we're using the same multiplier. So let's put that into our calculator. Shift times 100 squared times 1/8. Execute. Don't want our answer in pi, we want it in decimals. 3927. Let's just round it up to 3927. 3927. And our units will be meters squared. So that's our final area. That's our final perimeter. Leilani asks, why is it divided by 360 degrees? Yeah, it's divided by 360. So in here, I put 45. So if we thought about the full circle, Leilani, that is 360 degrees. So this yellow part is the proportion of the whole circle. So basically we've got 45 divided by, this is the same as 1/8, because we could divide 360 and 45 by 45. Yeah. So it's basically, this means 45 degrees out of 360 degrees. That's how big our sector is. Alright, moving on. Unit, where are we? Alright, units of area are things that you've got to be careful with when you're converting between different types. And I'll show you why. This 3.74 meters, to get it into millimeters, we would simply just multiply by 1,000, because 1 meter equals 1,000 millimeters. Now, that's not actually the case for, we can't just do multiplying by 1,000 again to get millimeters squared, and this is one of the most common mistakes that students will make, is in converting units of area. So over here, I've got this is a square. And if it was 1 meter squared, it would be 1 meter by 1 meter. But also, it is 1,000 millimeters that way, and it is 1,000 millimeters that way. So the area inside this square is 1 meter squared, or it is 1,000 times 1,000 millimeters. So it's actually 1 million millimeters squared. Yeah. We could actually work out what it would be in centimeters squared as well. So 1 meter is equivalent to 100 centimeters. I'll just do that in a different color. So 100 centimeters by 100 centimeters. So that is 100 times 100, which equals 10,000 centimeters squared. So actually, if we wanted to take this 3.74, we don't multiply by 1,000, we multiply by 1,000 twice. So you actually go times 1,000 times 1,000. So your actual answer is 3,740,000 millimeters squared, because we took this million millimeters squared per meter squared. 1 meter squared equals 10,000 centimeters squared, and also it's 1 million millimeters squared, right? So in centimeters squared, we would go 3.74 times 10,000. Multiplying by 10,000 is just going to move our, well, this number here is it's like standard form. We're just going to drop that where that 1 is. So we're going to get 400 centimeters squared. Okay, hectares. So hectares is a funny unit that we typically use if we're talking about the land area of a house or the size of a farm. It's usually used for large land areas. Acres is an imperial unit that we don't really use anymore, but sometimes old people will talk about having 3 or 4 acres of land, but really they should be using hectares, because hectares is metric and acres is imperial. So let's work out some hectares. So a hectare is 100 meters by 100 meters. So if we had a square that went 100 by 100, then we would have 1 HA. So 1 HA is hectares. So 1 hectare is equal to 100 times 100. 100 times 100, which equals 10,000 meters squared. All right. So in the book, there's some questions to do on page 85 on converting hectares and other units of measurement. So I might just do just a couple of those, and that'll be the end of our lesson. All right. So I'm just going to start on question 2. A 38,000 meters squared to hectare. Okay, so we have 1 hectare is equal to 10,000 meters squared. So if we take 38400 and we divide it by 10,000, then we're going to get to the number of hectares. So see how this number lines up perfectly on the top? We could take our decimal point and just move it the same amount on the top and bottom. So we're going to get 3.84 divided by 1 if we move the zeros down. Technically, if you've got zeros on top and bottom, you can cancel out. So you might get 384 divided by 100, and I'll be like, oh, okay. So our final answer is 3.84 hectares. That over there. All right. Question B. And acres. Yeah. So we might do, I'll do one conversion of imperial units at the end, because that is where it really gets hard. You're just lucky that SI units are all units of 100 and 1,000. It just makes the numbers way easier. So we'll do one question with American units, because I mean it's good that it makes it a challenging problem, but you don't really need to use them so much in New Zealand. But occasionally, you might come across people who deal with things in American units, and a lot of online content is done in America, so yeah, they will typically use their harder units. Well, let's just do one more. We might go, that's another hectare question. We'll do C actually. So 3.5 meters squared to centimeters squared. So I might have forgotten what my conversion to centimeters squared is. So if you forget, just draw a square. So if you draw a square, you can put 1 meter on the top, which would mean that you've got 100 centimeters on the bottom, 1 meter on the side, 100 centimeters on the other side. And that means that we can go 1 times 1 is 1 meter squared, is equivalent to 100 times 100. Just count all the zeros up, 4 zeros, 1, 2, 3, 4 centimeters squared. So that is our conversion between meters and centimeters squared. So if we're going from meters to centimeters, what have we done? We multiplied by 10,000. So 3.5 times 10,000, equals 35,000. All right. Let's do something complicated with imperial units to round off the lesson. America. All right. Let's do 600 feet squared to square inches squared. All right. So to do this, you need to know how many feet how many inches are in a feet and a foot. So we'll draw up a square foot. So 1 foot that way, 1 foot that way. Well, what is 1 foot? It's 12 inches. And 12 inches this way. The Americans actually use this comma system. They don't really write feet that much. So 1 foot, you could write that as 1 little dash, and 12 inch, you could write that as 12 double dash. So they actually will a shorthand. If you did 3 feet 4 inch, then you could write 3 comma, that's just a quicker way of writing 3 foot 4 inch. But anyway, back up to our square. So this square is 1 foot squared, but it's also 144 inches squared, because 12 times 12 is 144. They are basically using Subway sandwiches to measure things. I mean, a foot is a nice distance, though. You can sort of visualize a foot because you know the length of a Subway sandwich, so it's easy. It's an easy thing to just visualize in your head. So basically, 1 foot squared equals 144 inches squared. So to get from feet to inches, we multiply by 144, right? So 600 times 144 equals, we're going to have to use our calculator because it's not easy to do because it's not metric. 600 times 144, 86,400. 86,400 inches squared. All right. That's the end of the lesson, I think. We'll end it there. I might, if you want to try something, this is the I'm going to put a puzzler, just make this up. How many inches squared in 1 acre? There we go. I think we'll end the lesson there on the video. And I'll just go back up to, this is the exercise from page 85, exercise 3B1. Once you get the hang of this, it shouldn't take you very long. You just got to be able to figure out what 1 square foot or 1 meter squared is in the other units.